Hi, and welcome to the Spiritual Awakener. I'm so pleased to have you with us today to listen to my podcast. This is a podcast where I interview amazing people who have got stories about themselves where they've actually had a little turning point, a spiritual awakening, or something that has really led them to be so much more in the world. If you haven't heard my spiritual awakening story, go to episode 1 where I tell you all about it. So I'm excited to be here with someone who's become a good friend of mine. I've only actually known him for about 6, 7 months, but we met at the New Media Summit, which is where we talked about podcasts and we spoke on the stage together. And he's become someone that I've admired from afar, but I've also started to get to know him on a personal level. I'm very pleased because he invited me on his podcast where I had a blast and told him all about me, some of the stuff he didn't know. And I'm really excited to hear about some of the stuff I don't know about him. So, Thom Singer, welcome to my show, The Spiritual Awakener.
Hi, Susan.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And I went on your podcast, which was the cool things that entrepreneurs do, but you also host another one as well. Can you tell us the name of that?
Yeah, I did some work as a professional speaker for an organization, and that association wanted to start their own podcast, and they're called the Digital Enterprise Society. And they work with people in technology who work around the digital tools in manufacturing around what's called product lifecycle management. So it's PLM software. And I, along with the former leader of PLM for General Motors, together we co-host the Digital Enterprise Society podcast.
Yeah, so that's a subject that I definitely haven't had on my podcast. And it really doesn't matter to me who comes on, but what I really want is somebody who has a soul. And I know that about you, Thom. I know that you have a soul because when I connect with people at these events, I know the specific people that I really want in my life, and you're one of them. So tell us, Thom, what you do, but from a perspective of why you do it. So what was it that actually got you to do what you do?
Wow. Well, let's go back to birth. As a kid, I always wanted to be an actor. And I thought that that would be like a great job. I like to perform. I like to do things. I was in theater in high school.
Mm.
My high school in the 80s also had a closed circuit television newscast, which isn't rare today for a high school to have video and like a newscast for homeroom about what was going on with sports and drama and clubs and things. But in the 80s, it was very rare for a school to be wired with TVs in every room and to have a news studio. And I was selected my senior year to be one of the anchors for that program. And it was usually like the really popular kids. And I wasn't one of those, but
Wow.
I had the ability to be able to give a speech and the ability with my acting background that I tried out and I scored really high. And I became one of the 6 anchors. The other people were all football players and cheerleaders. And I did that. And people always commented that they liked it when I was on the show because I was professional and I just had this ability
Wow.
to communicate. And then I never pursued being a newscaster and I never pursued being an actor. And the real reason was I was kind of scared. It seemed hard. It seemed like it was really competitive. And if you went for
Mm.
it, the odds were astronomical that you could fail. And I just didn't have the guts, I guess, to go for things that seemed like maybe I would fail. So I gravitated towards things I did well. I went to college. I studied government, but then I ended up going into sales. I sold to technology companies. I was a photographer for a while. I did several things, but
Wow.
but
Lots of
when I was
things.
in sales and marketing,
Mm.
if you're in sales and marketing, you go to a lot of conferences, either that your
Yeah.
company puts on or that you're attending. And I would sit in the audience and I would watch the speakers on the stage. And I remember thinking, wow, she or he, they have a better job than I do.
Yeah.
And so I started learning about the world of professional speaking, and it turned out it was an industry, and it took me a long time, but eventually I actually became a professional speaker. As I got older, I guess I got a
How
little
old
bit.
were you? How old were you when you became a professional speaker?
I would have been in my early 40s because it was just 11 years ago. So
Wow.
April 1st,
Yeah.
April
Yeah.
1st, 2009, I
And
was
it
late.
wasn't April Fool's Day, right?
Well, yeah, I got laid off from my job on April 1st, 2009. And I make the joke that the irony of being laid off on April 1st is not lost on me.
Yeah.
I called
Yeah.
my wife.
Incredible.
I called my wife and I said, I'm going to pursue my dream of being a speaker.
Wow.
I don't know if it was divine intervention. I don't know if it was
Mm.
luck. I don't know if it was hard work, combination of all three. But I've made my living for 11 years speaking at
Mm.
corporate and association events. And also I created a niche of being a master of ceremonies because I bring good energy to the stage. And
Yeah, you do.
I'll speak one year and the next year, the organizer will be like, why don't you just run the show?
Wow. I mean, you can feel it in your energy, you know, the way that you're speaking now. And obviously, I've been on your podcast as well. You just have a natural way of talking, a natural way of interviewing. And what I love about what you just said was, you know, you actually knew that from a very, very early age. You know, you didn't have any professional experience then, but you knew that that was that part of you. And I would like to say that soul part of you that actually you knew already. You already knew. But it's interesting what you said about not having the guts. And I think a lot of people, you know, if they listen to this now and they're listening to you, like they probably felt like that as a child as well. And it might not have been the speaking, but it could have been like, I don't know, to sail a boat or to drive a fast car or to be a doctor or whatever it might be. But they didn't pursue it. Okay, so let's carry the conversation on. So, I mean, I met you at the New Media Summit, obviously, and that was in San Diego. We're in San Diego. I'm in San Diego now, actually, in my hotel room interviewing you. And where are you? Where are you? Where am I interviewing you?
So I actually had a drink with you in the bar last night in San Diego
Yes.
at about 5:30, and then I
Yeah,
took a 7:30 flight back to Austin, Texas. So I
that's right.
call my home Austin. But I actually grew up in Southern California, and San Diego was
Yeah.
sort of a homecoming. I went to college in San Diego.
Yeah, wow. So I was in the Gaslamp district last night, so having dinner, so you probably know exactly where that is, yeah?
Oh yeah, and in fact, when I was in college in the 80s, that area is now all bars and restaurants, and it's the entertainment district.
Yeah.
Back then, it was like uh, warehouses and abandoned,
Wow.
drug dealers and hookers and tattoo parlors, and
Mm.
it was not the neighborhood you hung out in at night. And now everybody hangs out there at night.
But it has a little twist of that as well, I would say. You know, when I was walking there last night in the absolute pouring rain and the monsoon that I thought I wasn't going to get when I came to California, um, I was like, there's a taint to this road as well, you know. But anyway, let's go back to your talking about you, which is more important. So then, you know, when you realise that little spark inside of you was lit, it was really because you had this moment in time, like we call a turning point. I call spiritual awakening. Some people call a turning point, where, you know, literally the universe went bang, job ended, right? And, you know, that job ended. So we're going to wake you up. Essentially, you know, that your inner guidance, the universe, your soul's expression woke you up in that moment. And so what happened in that moment? What was the next step for you?
Well, I don't know that it was a specific moment. I had been prepping and wanting to do this. And so I'd already written a couple of books. I'd already been speaking on the side.
Amazing. Yeah.
Uh, but the thing that changed was I suddenly had that as my label, and I didn't have any other
Yeah.
way to go. It was the mother of necessity. I had to
Yeah.
make it work. And so I really pursued what I was doing. And my topic at the time, and I still speak on this, it's changed over the years because the world has changed in 11 years.
Yeah.
But I talked about how do you connect with people in a gadget crazy world? Because if you think back 11 years, that's about the
Mm.
time the smartphone arrived. And everybody was thinking, oh, well, live events are going to die. We could just get on, we could stream things and watch
Mm.
videos, and LinkedIn and Twitter will be enough to communicate. And I always knew that wasn't true. I always
Mm.
knew that live meetings were going to happen. And what I always tell people is over the 10 years that I've been doing, 11 years that I've been doing this, people
Yeah.
were so worried that the meetings industry would go away. Well, year over year since 2009, the meetings
Yeah.
industry has grown and expanded. Now, in 2020, with coronavirus, we're having the meetings industry was the first industry to be hit. I think that this recession,
Mm.
global recession that's going to come out of what's happened is going to be devastating for a lot of industries.
Yeah.
But the first people to get hit were the people who worked in and around the lives meeting industry. And
Mm.
and it's not just speakers, it's the hoteliers, it's the people who drive the transportation buses, it's the bartenders. There's a
Yeah.
huge ripple effect that happened instantly as things like South by Southwest and other conferences were immediately canceled.
Mm.
However, I came in at the time I came in and I talked about why it was important to network as we get through this coronavirus, and it will go
Yeah.
away. will fade
Yeah,
out.
of course it will. Of course it will. It's just a phase, isn't it? It's just like
Right.
a wave. And you have an episode actually, just Tom, where I listened to you and you were talking about the coronavirus. And it was just recent, obviously. Like I think it was March the 4th or something. So if someone wants to find that on your podcast, then cool things that entrepreneurs do, they can hear it.
So, and yeah, and what I wanted to say is it's kind of taking me back to 11 years ago when people
Yeah.
were thinking, oh, we don't need to network, we can click our way to things.
Yeah.
I think once live events come back, I'm back to my basic core of teaching people how do we connect with each other in a post-coronavirus world? Because what we're finding is that
Yeah.
epidemic of loneliness, people are being sequestered and quarantined.
Yeah.
People are going to feel extremely lonely. We're going to need live events again. And I really feel strongly that that's the role I play with the message that I have.
Wow, yeah. And it's really interesting because I mean also I run my business completely like this. You know, I can be anywhere in the world, which I am, and I can work with anyone anywhere in the world. So my business won't suffer at all. In fact, my business will probably increase because of it, because people will be sitting down in their homes, quarantined, as you said.
They're going to be hungry for their spiritual awakening.
Absolutely. And maybe, who knows what the universal big plan is, but maybe it was so that people stopped for a little bit. You know, I know that a few people, Doug, for example, was, you know, his speaking events have changed as well. So he's had to sit and do more podcasts and, you know, and probably you as well. And it's probably where, you know, there's just like another awakening that has to happen in the world. The other thing as well about, you know, being a business person or an entrepreneur or standing out on your own, Tom, actually, you're not really working for someone else. And I think that people that are working in companies at the moment and they're experiencing this, they are thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen to my job? But of course, when you work for yourself, you can just create and reinvent another part of you. This leads me quite nicely to say to you that, you know, we had a little bit of a conversation before we went on, and you were saying that just recently, maybe was it last year or the end of last year, there was a bit of you that actually had another bit of awakening. And would you like to share with my listeners about that?
Sure. And I'm very cautious to call it that I've had a spiritual awakening because I know people like you who have
Yeah.
had spiritual awakenings, and
Yeah.
mine might be like spiritual awakening light. But, you know, I've been very fortunate. I've had a nice career. I have a great wife. I have nice kids. I live in a nice place. I live in a wonderful city. However, I haven't really been fully always present as much as I could be. And what I accidentally discovered was I had taken some things that were said or done around me more than a decade ago.
Mm.
And rather than dealing with them either with the person involved or sort of behind the scenes,
Mm.
I put it in a box, stuck it in the side, nailed it shut, and just went on. And what I've learned of recently is that's probably not the best way to deal with things. But I did. And in listening to some podcasts like yours and others, I started to notice that there was like banging on the box, like
Yes.
there was a banging. And so I pried the lid open and did not like what I saw, but also it had been so
Mm.
much time. It's like, why am I holding on to this crap? And I
Yeah.
probably should have gone and seen a therapist about it. I probably should
Mm.
have talked to someone like you about it. But what I did is I just sort of self-processed it. And as it
Yeah.
turned out, I'm the type of person who, once I know what the problem is, I
Mm-hmm.
can sweep it away.
Yeah.
And it was as if I was in a cave and didn't know it. And this
Yeah.
cave had, like, what do they call it? Emergency lighting. I could see. I thought that was normal. And
Yeah.
literally in December, this was like late October, early November, I started admitting to some of this. I dealt with it maybe by drinking a little too much
Mm-hmm.
over the years. And, you know, I actually said to my wife, look, when I'm travel, you know, sometimes, you know, I've done that. I, you know, didn't do anything horrible, but, you know, it's like, I just want
Mm.
to be honest and open. And then
Mm.
it was as if somebody had knocked the door in the cave open and there was
Yeah.
light at the end. And ever since then, I've been walking, you know, go into the light. I've been walking toward, I was out for a hike recently.
Yeah.
Austin can be beautiful. You can have warm weather in this time of year. It was a beautiful
Mm.
day, maybe 70 degrees. And I was just hiking. I was listening to music. And all of a sudden I thought, does the world look brighter? And for me, being sort of a business guy and not really all
Yeah.
woo-woo, I was sort of blown away by the fact that, holy shit, it is brighter. And I've felt that way ever since. So I wouldn't say I've had the awakening. I'm on a journey. How's that?
Yeah, and that's perfect. And the thing is it is that part of us, I think, that, when we start to kind of recognize that the world actually is a beautiful place, and that's what I was kind of hearing from you, like you're out for a hike and you were actually acknowledging what you were walking in, and people do close the doors to the beauty. I never understand it when people say, I'm like, wow, look at the sky, isn't that stunning? And they're like, well, it's just the sky. I'm
That
like,
that might have been me over the last 14 years.
yeah.
Now I see the sky for sure.
Absolutely. And it's seeing that, isn't it? And being kind of grateful for, but not in a kind of, oh, I'm grateful for everything, but just noticing and just saying, wow, actually that is incredible. And that it's like when you hear music, there's a piece of music and your hairs stand up on your body and you know that there's something more energetic about it and it really feeds you. But what I wanted to say was that quite often, what's happened to us in our life has actually been a really good thing. So, as much as you said that you shut the door and so on, I think that, sometimes people go, not you personally, but some people might be listening to this and saying, oh my God, if only I had seen that when I was 6 or I was 25 or whatever it might be. Actually, I believe that the time that you see something, the time that you awaken something is because it was meant to happen then. Yeah. And just to,
Thank you for saying that, because I've actually
yeah,
spent the last 4 months thinking, God, I wish I had dealt with this 15 years ago.
yeah. Well, that's why I'm psychic, Tom.
Oh
But,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh man. Well, and the other thing is as we go into this, and I don't know when this episode will air. We're recording it in the middle of March. As we go into now some serious closing down and social distancing of people, my business as a professional speaker is going to live conferences, and the first thing being hit is live conferences are being canceled. And
Yeah.
my next 2 months, my calendar has vanished. I mean, I speak for a lot of companies and a lot of associations who are not having the meeting. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I make money, and I make plans based on events that are booked.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, I probably would have gone into the corner and cried myself to sleep, under a blanket. And yet, as I go into this, because of sort of this awakening or this crack in the door,
Mm-hmm.
I was on the phone with a few other speakers and we were talking about the problem. And a lot of people were like, oh, the sky is falling. And I literally was like, we'll get through this. There will be an answer. I will do something or say something or
Of
experience
course.
something, and
Yeah.
something will open up where I'll be able to continue to do what I do or do something different.
And I think that's a brilliant way to look at it. And there are going to be a lot of people, and this will air very soon, and there'll be a lot of people who are thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? The toilet rolls are all sold out in the supermarkets, which I think is hilarious.
Is that a British problem too, or is it just
Oh my
American?
God, it's still a British problem. I just couldn't believe it when I heard my son tell me this morning when I was speaking to him. And I just, this kind of thing is like, for me, I love change, right? I don't want to get stuck in the same thing. I love change. If I can expand something and change something, then I'm right up for it. And I think that we need to, what I'm kind of getting intuitionally here is not be in the fear of change, and whether you've experienced a really difficult childhood or a really difficult relationship or whatever it might be, change is really good. So in this situation with the speaking aspects of you, you're like a diamond with all of these different facets. There's not just the speaker, Tom, right? There's the soul part of you that's really, showing people that even people like you, amazing speakers, amazing successful people, can actually have something within them that they knew they should have maybe opened the door to before, right? And so looking at that and saying, well, that's me, and maybe I didn't tell people that was me, but actually that is me. Who knows how this episode and maybe other shows you go on where you're literally taking your little jacket off and bearing your heart, who knows where that's going to lead you? Because men really need, women do as well, but men really need to open that feminine part of them, that part of them that is the divine feminine of receiving, you know, not just the kind of fixer, because a lot of men like to fix, and you could laugh. Yeah, do you like to fix, Tom? Yeah, yeah. So
do we want to get my wife on this call? She'll tell you.
yeah, but I'll interview her another time, definitely, because I want to hear the other side of this, right? But yeah.
She's an introvert. She wouldn't do I'm safe. She won't do the interview.
She might do if she talks to me. But yeah, so the part of the men that want to fix everything and take the responsibility for fixing everything, what about the part of the men that want to embrace that divine feminine part, the vulnerability, the part of us that says, oh my God, well, you know, in your case, well, what might happen if I don't do these speaking events? Well, maybe that part of you will tell you what might happen. You know, come really into your heart. If you're a man listening to this, or a woman, whatever, and you think, oh my God, but you know, I've always been the hunter-gatherer. I've always been the alpha. I've always been the one that provides. What's going to happen? Well, do it without fear and trust that you are always looked after. There is always somebody who has your back, and you're never, ever on your own.
Well, and before October or November of last year, I don't know that I would have come on a show called The Spiritual Awakener. I don't know. I think I would have rolled my eyes like, oh, whip-de-doo.
Yeah.
And I have had this real connection that I can't explain that is like, this is okay.
Yeah. But I think that's coming home to the part of us where, like, I came out of the closet, not in a gay way necessarily, but in a way where I had to say, yeah, you know what? I do talk to dead people sometimes, right? Not that we ever die, but I do talk to people, and I do channel my guides. But I am also a scientist, and it was like, open the doors for that as a spiritual scientist. And for you, you know, you're opening the doors to the real Tom. Yeah, because I know that, you know, comedians, comedians, right? So I've got to tell you about Tom and his comedy, because he's a very funny guy. So I'm going to get him to talk about that in a minute. But people that stand on the stage are being a persona. You know, whether you're an actor, whether you're a comedian, or whether you're a speaker, you are in a persona. And it might be that it was time for you to be the Tom, you know, that we all love and that people fall in love with, because that part of you is who you are and has led you to who you are. So now, Tom is a very, very cool comedian. Okay, so Tom, just tell us, you know, and he's a very driven man, and you're going to hear this now. Why did you do that? Why did you? I've heard it, but I want my listeners to hear your story.
So when I turned 50, which was 3.5 years ago, I made a proclamation, and this was before I even knew I was locked in a cave, but I made a proclamation that I was going to make age 50 to 75 the best years of my life. And the truth was, I've had a good life. So that was a big proclamation. And in fact, my daughter, who was in her 20s, said, what about age 25 to 50? And I said, well, I was raising you. That was hard. It's now going to be about your mom and I now. It's going to be going forward. So I made this proclamation that I would try new things. I was gonna not, I told you earlier, I didn't pursue an acting career or a career as a newscaster, because if it scared me, or I didn't think I would be instantly good at it, or if it was too competitive, I just said no. And so I tried to change that. I started saying yes to things. And the more I could say yes, the more I figured it would open me up. And so I'm scared of heights, and I jumped off a thing called the stratosphere in Vegas, a 108-story jump. I've gone zip lining. I took up running. I was 30 pounds heavier 4 years ago, and I ran a couple of half marathons the last couple of years, and I run 5 to 10, 12 miles a week. And the list is long of little things that I just started trying.
Not so little.
You mean jumping off a 108-story building isn't a little thing?
Oh my God, what are we going to see next?
I'm going to go skydiving for my 54th birthday in a few months. So
wow.
What happened 2 years ago is I was going to be in New York, and another speaker I know who is very successful, he speaks on humor in the workplace. His TED Talk has been watched 8 million times. Wow. That's a lot. I did a TEDx talk. My TEDx talk has been watched 1,600 times. I would like to catch up to Drew, my friend Drew Tarvin. So if you're listening, if you have 7,999,000 people listening, it'd be great if they went and listened to mine, because I would like that. But Drew is also a professional comic and improv artist. And I was going to be in New York, and I said, oh, I'd love to see you. And he goes, oh, that night you're going to be there. Come to open mic night with me. And I said, I'd love to watch you work on new material. And his response was, that's not what I'm inviting you to do. And I literally was like, no, oh God, no, I'm 51. And he goes, did you want to be an actor as a kid? Didn't you say that was your thing? Why not do a stand-up set? And I said, that ship has sailed. I'm too old. And he kind of said something like, aren't you the guy who teaches people to try new things? And I was like,
wow.
dang. So I wrote a 5-minute set. I went to a comedy club in New York City with my friend Drew. My name was drawn. I went up. I did a 5-minute stand-up set. And it wasn't horrible. It wasn't great. I tell people that Jerry Seinfeld is certainly not scared about his job. I was doing comedy. It wasn't that good.
Yeah.
When I got home, I told my wife there was some learning happening. There was something drawing me into it. I was going to go to 100 open mic nights.
Wow.
And once a week, usually when I travel, but sometimes at home, I go to an open mic night in a comedy club, a coffee shop, a bar, wherever there's a comedy night. Yeah. I sign up. Usually I'm chosen, and I'll do a 3 to 5 minute set. And as we come up on the 2-year mark next week, I've done it 90 times. So almost every week for 2 years. Coming up on that, I think 92 times now. Coming up on 100 real soon. And what's it done for me?
You did this week. You did
Yeah,
You did 2 this week. Yeah.
You did it twice
2
in
this
San
week.
Diego. But what it's done for me is it's opened up a part of me where my clients, when I speak, sometimes companies will have me back for 2 and 3 years. They're saying, how are you better? We hired you because you were good. And the answer is I'm not funny, but I'm more playful and my timing is better.
Yeah.
And that's making me better at my craft. But more importantly, and here's what's important for your audience, it's exposed me to an entire different world of people who I probably wouldn't normally have encountered. People who do stand-up comedy, especially those starting out, they're different than the world I live in. They're a lot younger. Most of the people in these comedy open mic nights are 25 years old. If I go to a business event and I get a glass of wine and I stand there in the corner, usually someone will come talk to me because I look like the bank president, right? I'm just this middle-aged white guy who looks like when I go into the comedy club, a lot of them have alternative lives. A lot of them are a whole bunch of different ethnic backgrounds. They are tattooed, they are pierced, which is all great, but it's not me. And they look at me and they think, who brought their dad? Nobody would talk to me for like the months, even locally where I'd go to the same clubs for months. I had to learn how to go into their social world instead of other people coming into my social world. And it's really opened up my soul as a person.
Wow, Thom, it's opened up my soul as a person. That's amazing. So you've really like connected with that soul part of you, haven't you? That part of you that drives, and it is all about connection. You know, when we think about the conference that the summit we've just been at, it's really about connection, and people have gone away with amazing connections. But having a podcast is about connection, and it's about connecting. You know, a bit like spreading activation in artificial intelligence. You know, we're literally spreading out that energy and that light to others so that when they hear stories like yours and stories like other people, that they go, oh my God, actually, normal everyday people like you and I have had these experiences, but we haven't just sat on them. We've actually done something with them. And so if you had something you could tell my audience, like, you know, they might be a similar age to you. They might have lived their life working for corporate companies, just feeling really depressed probably most of the time, and getting up every day at like 5 in the morning and working till 10 at night. What would you say to them? You know, what would you say to them?
Well, we have to choose. Some people love that. You know, I talk to people all the time who would never want to be an entrepreneur. So if you love where you are, put your arms around it and give it a big hug. If you don't love where you are, figure out how to move your ladder to the right wall. So many people, I did this for 30 plus years. They climb that corporate ladder to get to the top or near the top and look around and go, wait a minute, this isn't where I want to be climbing. So if you feel that your ladder's against the wrong wall, you have to move it. So the first thing I would tell people is get around people who are succeeding in what you want to do, in the area you want to be. Because I don't know a lot of things, but I know one thing, and that is success leaves clues. So if you can't get around these people in person, listen to their famous people like Richard Branson or someone like that. Listen to interviews that they've done, not just one, listen to 40 interviews that he's done and pick up that part of his essence that's there. You can also listen to podcasts of just regular successful people. You have your podcast, you have my podcast, the 40 podcasts of the people we were with this week in San Diego.
Yeah.
Start listening to what people are saying who are successful in the area you want to be, because success is going to leave clues. They can't help it. They leave an idea, a theory, a nugget, an idea. And once we get unquarantined, unsequestered, and we can go back into the world with other humans, embrace it. And this is something I'm trying to figure out is what is that message? Like, how we need people. I think that the epidemic of loneliness is going to explode over the next months.
Yeah.
We need to embrace the people. So if you're feeling any of those things I just said, you have to get around people, but not any people. You have to get around the right people who inspire you. The old saying that you are the sum when it comes to your soul, your heart. You're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you're spending time with people whose, souls are locked in a cave and they're full of coal, then you're going to go to that level. But if you get around people who are exploring, who are walking into that light, who are saying, oh, look at that sky, it's a lot brighter. Get around those people, and that's going to allow you to come on that journey with them.
Brilliant. And I love that about you as well, Thom, is that you could stand there, you can be whoever you want to be on the stage, but when I interview you like this, I'm really getting to know the real man that you are. And you are a really beautiful man, a really beautiful soul. And I've had such a great time on this interview. I really have. I have no idea how long we've been talking. I decided I wasn't going to put any limits on it. I just wanted to go with a conversation. So, Thom, how can people get hold of you?
So my website is kind of the hub of everything for me. It's thomsinger.com. That's Thom. I guess people in Britain, it's a little more common to spell Thom, Thom. In America, Tom is the more popular one. And I've never figured out why, because all of us, for the most part, who are Thom, most of us are Thomas, which is usually Thomas. I don't know why when they shorten it, they take out the H. I just got rid of the ass.
You just keep it really simple, don't you, Thom? Really simple. So thanks guys for listening today. I've had such a blast. I love interviewing people from all different walks of life, and because I work all over the globe, it's great to interview you guys from all over the globe. So thanks for joining us on The Spiritual Awakener. If you have a spiritual awakening story or a turning point in your life that you want to share with me and my listeners, I'd love to hear from you. Find me at susankennard.co.uk, and you can listen to this anywhere in the world. Much love, and see you soon.